Good morning. This recording is for Pre-Algebra Chapter 6, Lesson 2, Proportions. This should be a review, so hopefully you'll remember back to 6th and 5th grade or, whatever you did before pre-algebra. All right, so a proportion is an equation of two ratios, not ratios. And remember, a ratio is just two things being compared by division. All right, so in a proportion, the cross products are equal, and that's the multiplication of the diagonal numbers, and they equal each other. Okay, so we use cross product to determine the values of a variable in a proportion. So basically, you have two fractions that equal each other, much like this. H over 9 is equal to 2 over 3. This is a proportion. So a proportion is always two fractions that equal each other. And they have to equal each other if they're a proportion. If they don't equal each other, then they are not a proportion. So by the fact that they equal each other, by the fact that I say that they equal each other, this is in fact a proportion. All right, so we want to figure out what H is. And I told you that if you use cross product, which means basically multiplying the two things that are diagonal from each other, in this case, H and 3 and 2 and 9, they should equal each other because this is a proportion. So if I do 2 times 9 equals 3 times H, we can figure out what H is by doing some simple math. Well, 2 times 9 is 18, 3 times H is 3H, and if I'm going to get H by itself, I need to do the opposite of what's happening to H, which means dividing by 3. Well, 3 over 3 equals 1, so it just cancels out, leaving me H on one side, and 18 divided by 3 is 6, so H equals 6, which means 6/9 equals 2/3. And that kind of makes sense because 2 times 3 is 6, and 3 times 3 is 9. All right, next example. 4 over 5 is equal to T over 55. Well, some of you guys are going to be able to do this mentally. What times 5 is 55? Well, that'd be 11, so 4 times 11 is 44. But let's go ahead and do the math anyway, because I will expect to see this quite a few times on tests and quizzes. So 4 times 55 equals T times 5. So it'd be 4 times 55 equals 5 times T. 4 times 55 is 220 equals 5 times T. What's happening to T? Well, it's being multiplied by 5. The opposite of that is divide by 5. So we're going to divide by 5 on both sides. T equals 44. Hey, guess what? I was right. Check that out. All right, so 4 over 5 is the same as 44 over 55. All right, last problem, at least on the slide. 22 over D is equal to 6 over 21. Let's do cross products. It would be 22 times 21 is equal to 6 times D. So 22 times 21 is 462 is equal to 6 times D. Divide by 6 on both sides, and D equals 77. There you go. All right, so those two fractions are equivalent. They mean the same amount. All right, so we can also use determine if two ratios form a proportion, check if the cross products are equal. This will become very important in Algebra 1 when we start talking about polynomials and factoring. So make sure you understand this now. Is 6/9 the same as 4/6? Well, we can use cross product. So if we set them equal to each other, do these two things equal? Does 4 times 9 equal 6 times 6? Well, 4 times 9 is 36, and 6 times 6 is 36. So yes, 6/9 and 4/6 are a proportion because they are equivalent fractions. All right, 5/20 and 5/7. Do they equal each other? Well, 15 times 7 is 105, and 5 times 20 is 100, so no, they are not forming a proportion. All right, last slide, some word problems. 100 nautical miles, nautical means in the ocean or on water, nautical miles equals about 115 standard or statute miles, and that would be like land miles. How many statute miles equal 381 nautical miles? All right, so if we know that 100 nautical miles is about the same as 115 statute miles, and this is kind of like a rate, they mean the same thing. If I go 100 nautical miles, it's the equivalent of like going 115 miles on land, and we set that equal to how many nautical miles we know and how many statute miles we don't know, we are going to get ourselves a proportion. So we're going to end up with 100 over 115 is equal to 381 over x. Cross product away. 381 times 115 equals something times 100. So let's figure out what x is. So that would be 381 times 115 is 43,815, which is equal to 100 times x. Divide by 100, x equals 438.15 statute miles. So if you go 381 miles in water, it's about the same as going 438.15 miles on land. Make sense? Okay. So again, a nautical mile is actually longer than a statute mile because you can go less nautical miles and make up more distance as if you were doing it in statute miles. Okay, so if we know how far in nautical, the next question is, the next question is, to the nearest mile, how far in nautical miles is 100 statute miles? Well, we're going to use the exact same starting fraction that we did up here, all right? So 100 nautical miles over 115 statute miles. So 100 nautical miles over 115 statute miles is equal to how many nautical miles over 100 statute miles? Well, there's the proportion. We're going to end up with 100 times 100 is equal to 115 times x. 100 times 100 is 10,000. 10,000 divided by 115 is 86.96 nautical miles. So again, if you go 100 miles on land, it's about the equivalent of 86.96 nautical miles in water. All right, I'm done. I wanted to keep this short. Hope you guys are having flashbacks to last year or the last time you learned proportions. All right, bye guys.